Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. It's a dangerous thing to mistake speaking without thought with speaking the truth. Oh boy, that sounded far more Forrest Gump than anything.
That sounded very Forrest Gump.
What's up, geeks? My name is Kev, and it's time to pack your bags with your finest resort wear. Don't forget your Speedo and matching waterproof gun holster, because we're traveling to the islands of Spestus, Greece, to peel back the layers of another mystery with world-famous detective Benoit Blanc. As I mentioned, this is our spoiler-free review of Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. You know, speaking of spoiler-free reviews, we have a ton of awesome new content to check out on the channel, including spoiler-free reviews for Disney Plus content, including Disenchanted, Mickey the Story of a Mouse, and the first 2 episodes of The Santa Clauses. We also have our spoiler-free review for another Netflix movie, Slumberland. A huge thanks to Netflix Canada for setting us up with a screening for Glass Onion at the TIFF Bell Lightbox Theatre in Toronto. The film releases in select theaters on November 23rd. We're so glad you could join us today, and if you are joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast focusing on the world of TV, movies, games, toys, and collectibles, and all things geek-centric. Of course, it just wouldn't be a proper vacation if I had to travel on my own. Joining me on this exotic excursion, he could swim at the pool all day and is my equal at the buffet. Just make sure his suite has a high-powered bidet. It's Nate.
Dude, I had the chance to stay at the sweet Chateau Hudson, as I think I've mentioned in a previous episode. And yeah, dude, you got to get a good bidet. I mean, honestly, if a celebrity came out with a line of bidets, I would hope they'd send me one and I could just brag about it to all my friends. I think that's kind of what I would do.
Nice. Maybe an Australian celebrity like Chris Hemsworth, or yes. and it could just be called Bidet Mate.
I love it.
It's a perfect name for. I like that.
Killing it, dude.
But we're going to be joined by someone else as well. He's an excellent tour guide and can always recommend a good hotspot. He's especially useful if you want to find some good local pot. It's Darcy.
Hello there. That's as far as I'll go with the southern accent,
nice.
okay?
No, that was better than anything I've done.
Better
I'm
than
not even
Kevin.
gonna try for the rest of the podcast. What's up, gents? We saw this movie, which is set in a beautiful Mediterranean locale, just as our first real winter snowstorm hit. Did this movie help to sort of distract you just from the impending 5 months of wintry hell we're set to face here in the Great White North?
You know, we watched Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, and then we walked outside and it was freezing cold, and we're like, wow, winter just didn't even try to be subtle about this. Like if winter was a Who-Dunnit, then it was a really poorly done Who-Dunnit, because it just, we find out the answer right away, and that is that it's freaking cold. And I remember we walked outside of the TIFF Bell Light Box, and we're like, we should get some food. And shout out to the Obi Canteen, is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Attached to the TIFF Bell Light Box, absolutely delicious. But as I was sitting eating my mac and cheese next to Darcy, who had already eaten. Darfy, who had already eaten all his mac and cheese, like the good Southern gentleman he is. I got to thinking about this movie. Yeah, this is interesting. It definitely, it's not as cozy, I think, as the first Knives Out movie. That one being very much set in a time similar to like a November kind of fall sort of time, like with sweaters and everything. This is warm in a different way because you're on an island in Greece. So I definitely got a bit of warmth from it, but I don't think it is as cozy that a lot of people are saying as the first one.
Yeah, I mean, I completely forgot about the snowstorm we drove through and the 2 hours of traffic that Toronto highways become when it's this first snowstorm. I completely forgot about that whole thing once we were sitting there, enjoying the movie and getting swept away along on this another crazy mystery. And again, like you said, Nate, I mean, while it wasn't as cozy as the first one, it definitely lived up to a lot of the expectations you have coming into a Knives Out mystery.
Yeah, we were definitely trading, tons of thoughts back and forth, none of which, they were very spoiler. We're not going to spoil any of the mysteries, I'm sure, on this one. But we were, it's one of those movies I think you have to see it with friends. As soon as you get out of that theater, you're going to be talking about all the little things that
did you catch that? Did you see that?
So good.
And we found that Darcy said he had caught a few that we totally missed.
Yep.
But that was kind of a fun thing about it, is that it was instantly like, I have to rewatch this movie to see how all those pieces came together as the movie was unfolding. But before we slice into our thoughts on this latest Knives Out mystery, let me make your eyes water with a brief synopsis. Benoit Blanc returns to peel back the layers in a new Rian Johnson Who-Dunnit. This fresh adventure finds the intrepid detective at a lavish private estate on a Greek island, but how and why he comes to be there is only the first of many puzzles. Blanc soon meets a distinctly disparate group of friends gathering at the invitation of billionaire Miles Braun for their yearly reunion. Among those on the guest list are Miles' former business partner, Andy Brand, current Connecticut Governor Claire DeBella, cutting-edge scientist Lionel Toussaint, fashion designer and former model Birdie J, and her conscientious assistant Peg, and influencer Duke Cody and his sidekick girlfriend Whiskey. As in all the best murder mysteries, each character harbors their own secrets, lies, and motivations. When someone turns up dead, everyone is a suspect. Returning to the franchise he began, Academy Award-nominated filmmaker Rian Johnson writes and directs Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery, and assembles another all-star cast that includes a returning Daniel Craig, alongside Edward Norton, Janelle Monáe, Catherine Hahn, Leslie Odom Jr., Jessica Henwick, Madeline Klein, with Kate Hudson and Dave Bautista. So, gents, cocktail hour's about to start. We shouldn't linger too much longer puffing on our fine stogies, as this is a non-smoking garden. So let's get to our thoughts on the film. What worked?
I think immediately there's something in the movie that I think you'll see right at the beginning that I think was slightly cathartic, which is kind of the COVID references. This movie very much takes place at the height of the pandemic. I think obviously when they were writing the movie, they were all experiencing that, and so I think from a social commentary, we get to see the characters wearing masks. We get to see them talking about social pods, or for some of the characters, lack thereof, social pods. And I think it was what really hit home for me, because this is something that we literally all of us in this review sort of fell for, which is Among Us. During the pandemic, and talking over FaceTime and playing Among Us, or Kevin, you guys would do those fantastic trivia nights, and so to get to see LeBlanc playing Among Us with Angela Lansbury, by the way. I know we're not spoiling stuff, but I just really needed to shout out Angela Lansbury. It's her last performance. It was such a fantastic tribute to her. I think Murder She Wrote is where this movie is drawing a lot of its inspiration from, or where Rian Johnson pulls a lot of his inspiration from for these movies. But I think where a lot of movies that are set during that time would really push that angle, and there are some movies that are literally I think back to The Bubble, where it's that's the whole premise for the movie. That's all you get, and it gets so stale so fast. This movie acknowledges it, it gives you a little bit of it, and then it moves right past it, so it doesn't get stale as the movie starts to settle into itself. So I really appreciated that right off the bat from the movie. I think the movie is built really, really fantastically, and I was just happy that they didn't ignore it. Because I think a lot of movies, have the opportunity to comment on it and don't.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that was awesome to open up, but I mean, also the opening and when we're introduced to the cast of characters, I think that's where I kind of fell in love again, because what I loved about the first Knives Out was that all of the people who were involved in this Who-Dunnit were so much like larger than life and so over the top and exaggerated, and we get almost right back to that in a different way. But again, very diverse cast of characters, all really nailing their performances, in my opinion. And again, I found them all really engaging, and like a good Who-Dunnit, they were all, proper suspects that I could believe doing it and also didn't want to see doing it. So it was that I loved the cast and their performances. Again, that from the first movie to this one, that's one thing that carried through, is that the cast really brought their A game.
Absolutely. And I think we'll probably break down a few performances that we really, really enjoyed. But just sort of piggybacking on what you were saying there, Darce, in that the introduction of these characters was really, really well done, in that we learn who they are without a ton of expository, dialogue or anything. It's their actions and the way they're behaving that lets us get to know them. And then as we really see this group come together, another thing that stood out for me, and it's not something I generally notice in movies, but in this movie I absolutely loved it throughout, and it's the costuming. Like, it's one thing when you've got these period pieces and a lot of the movie and the aesthetic of it is built on these very familiar looking historical costumes. But no, the costuming here, I thought it was so interesting, and each character had their own style and their own way of presenting themselves, and the way they dressed really was a reflection of their behavior. And so I just thought whoever was responsible for the costuming in the movie here just did such a terrific job of defining these characters by what they wore, and it was fun to be looking at the character, and it was almost a distraction from some of the things that these characters are doing that were integral to the plot. You're distracted by what they're wearing, and so that's just such a fun idea in a movie like this.
Well, can we talk about a distraction? I mean, I think there's some beautiful, absolutely gorgeous people here. You talk about the costumes, sometimes lack thereof costumes, you know what I'm saying? We see some gorgeous bodies, but I gotta shout out probably the most distracting body in this movie, and that has to all do with Batista's thighs. They are absolutely astonishing in this movie, and there's a moment where he's wearing a Speedo and we see him from the angle of water in a pool, and I just couldn't believe how impressively thick that man's thighs are. I was like literally dumbfounded to the point where I had honestly blacked out for that scene. I didn't know who said what. Absolutely incredible. But yeah, that's probably my shout out for costuming.
I will say, as a professional wrestling fan, which is where Batista got to start, I am more than familiar seeing Batista in nothing but a pair of underwears and those big meaty thighs doing their job. So that didn't really throw me off as much. But it's funny that you've got Batista and Kate Hudson in a bathing suit, and here we are talking about Batista.
She did look fantastic, though,
she
too.
Looked unbelievable. And and it was such a, just such a unique bikini that she was wearing. It had this really high-profile fashion sense to it. It was great. I do want to quickly shout out Jenny Egan, who was the costume designer on this. I hated to say whoever did it, so I want to give proper due. She was also the costume designer on the first film, and I imagine a movie like this would be so much more fun to do the costuming on than the first one, where because it was just set in a house with, sure, rich people, the costuming didn't stand out as much in that one as it certainly did here. So I bet you she had a lot more fun defining these characters in that sense with this movie.
I think the characters are, where you can kind of get away with the costumes being different is that they're not family. Right, they're friends, and so we kind of get to sort of see the differences of their personalities in what they wear. I think even though LeBlanc in his status as the world's greatest detective is kind of the only real sort of connecting story thread from the first movie to this one is definitely a sequel in that it's bigger. The people in it are even richer. They're a little more dangerous. They're a little more crazy. But it also doesn't suffer from what a lot of sequels do suffer from, in that it stays true to being its own story, and it doesn't just try to rehash the previous movie. You're not getting a ton of sort of like winks and nods of like, remember from the first one, which is so refreshing for sequels. And I think this is bigger in all the right ways, in that it services the plot it's bigger tastefully. Whereas I think a lot of sequels, especially sequels from, Netflix, tend to kind of fall for that sort of trope of like, remember the first movie the entire time, and this one doesn't, which was lovely.
Well, and in another regard where they, as a sequel have gone bigger, grander, was the sets here, the scenery and the sets here. I just thought it was so interesting to look at everything. They've I can't believe this movie's made on a $40 million budget, just in the sense that some of the things they would have had to build if they didn't rely on CGI were just so extravagant and so lavish and so big in terms of scale that I was constantly wowed at what I was looking at. You could have really simplified this into just being a private getaway and a nice fancy mansion on the beach, but this was so much more than that. Again, playing into telling a story about the character played by Edward Norton that owns this property. It really was an extension of him and his personality, and you could feel that throughout the movie.
I mean, after seeing the movie, I was really intrigued by this main set that they were, we saw so many different, rooms and pieces of throughout the movie. And apparently that was just some resort that they rented out for during pandemic, of course, because this was produced during the pandemic. And just apparently the whole cast's families and crew's families were staying on that property while they were making this movie. And that sounds like they had a really good time and they got really close because they were all together for so long. And it really shows in the performances because, again, they are all so true to character. And I think, it's been a while since I've watched the first one, but I feel like, again, in the going bigger, the comedy game in this movie, just across the board, both, visual, spoken gags and even physical comedy, like everything is just, I found it dialed up to 11 in all the right ways. So yeah, it was great.
Absolutely. I think you're kind of calling out the humor there of the movie. It's so smart. It's so well done. It's not just funny for a moment, but it gets you thinking at the same time with a lot of the commentary and a lot of the jokes. And I think that says a lot about the kind of comedy that Rian Johnson writes, and it kind of adds to the style of these movies that gives them that sort of originality while also still staying modern. I found that the movie does a good job of bringing forward the social commentary as well. I think the original one, we had the jokes of like the right-winged agenda humor, and this one we get a lot of focus on, I think, some things that are maybe a little more, even more so relatable now, of sort of seeing the focus on toxic masculinity, seeing these characters being so self-centered, and like just sort of the commentary that it has on Hollywood as well, I think is absolutely
the underbelly of
hilarious.
Celebrity and fame. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I love that it's a movie that's coming from a big Hollywood blockbuster machine of Netflix, and it's making fun of it all at the same time, and I think that's pretty dope of Rian Johnson to kind of to put those kind of jokes in his movie, while getting paid by the same people that he's kind of poking fun at. But yeah, dude, the cast this time around, I think I personally did, just because I watched the first one on the flight over to see this one, and I think I do prefer the family dynamic of the first one. I think it just, to me, the characters, they sort of come with less setup needed, and I think because of that, I think the story of the first one flows a little bit better in terms of how we're introduced to the characters, and it doesn't feel. This one still feels very well built and really well connected, but I think the first one pulled it off a little bit better. But I just think having, like we said earlier, having them not be related allows a more diverse cast, and allows us to get these really, really kooky and zany characters that I think are a little more silly, but not in a way that ever felt like it was taking me out of the movie. It didn't feel like it was they were unrealistic. It just felt like they had a lot of money.
Fair enough. And yeah, there's a lot of big personalities here, and yet my favorite performance was probably from Janelle Monáe, who is maybe almost the most reserved of the characters, but the playing Andy Brand, but the role she's playing here, is almost like an onion in that there's so many layers that have to be peeled back for us to understand her, right? We can't say too much without giving anything away here, but I think she's got the most difficult role in just how complex the character she's playing is. And so I always love when an actor has this kind of performance where they have to demonstrate several different aspects of their personalities, if you will. And so I thought she did a really good job of distinguishing those different aspects of who she was playing in the film here.
Absolutely. She's fantastic in this movie. She's very much the vessel for the audience this time around, right? We get to sort of go through the movie with her and with Benoit, and I think that really helps to just make her the most sort of grounded character, if you will. And yeah, I just think she's got such range in this movie, especially, throughout the entire movie. We really do get to see her putting on and taking off many different hats from an acting perspective. And I think she's such a great addition for the cast. Of course, Daniel Craig, dude,
So
like
good.
the
So
Southern drawl. He's so charming this time around. And he's so much more of he's more of a character, I think, this time around. I think in the first one, he's a little bit more serious. He's a little more, he doesn't really get to show sort of his silly side, but here we get to see his silly side, whether he's wearing an ascot going into the pool, or whether he's like running away from the alarms of the no smoking garden, and he's just doing that like high kick, like high tail out of it. Like he's like literally like a Southern like little cartoon character. And yeah, I just enjoyed getting to see that side of his character and getting to sort of kind of see him be more proud of himself, because he should be. He's the greatest detective. So, for him to sort of have moments where he can just be like, yeah, I'm the fucking best, dude. Like I'm the best at this. It was awesome because I think it just sort of broke the character down a little bit more and made him more approachable.
Absolutely. And he's almost, at times he feels like he's almost overwhelmed by just how much there is for him to sort of, dissect and try and figure out here. This is, being a sequel, it's a bigger mystery. There's more layers to the onion in this one. But yeah, I mean, Daniel Craig sort of is most well known for, playing Bond or more serious roles like in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. But anytime he gets to sort of just roll up his sleeves and have fun with something, that's when I love him the best. Like between the Knives Out movies and Logan Lucky, I just think when he's able to be a fun character, that's my favorite Daniel Craig. And so yeah, he's just chomping at the bit to have fun at this role at all times, and it's very contagious, I think.
Well, I mean, can we also talk about Kate Hudson's screaming in this movie? She gives some phenomenal screams. I was looking it up because I was like, there's no way that she wasn't in a Scream movie. And apparently she was cast for Scream 3 and then was cut. Like they replaced her. And I don't know why exactly, but I literally was looking it up. So if anything, I think this movie, she lets out some really good screams in this movie. This could be her next audition for Scream. What are they on? 4, 5? How many Screams are there now?
I think it would be 6 is coming out next year.
Scream 6.
So she'll have to wait for 7. I think 6 is already filmed. So.
Right. So Scream 7, Kate Hudson, let's get her in it. I think she'd be phenomenal. But she was also so good as Birdie J in this movie. I think she does such a good job at sort of just playing this character who is just so ignorant, like just so absolutely self-absorbed ignorant. And then we get Jessica Henwick, who I think sort of gets to play that, again, sort of the side of the audience of just like, no, you idiot. Like, come on, like just figure this out already. Be a decent human being. And I think she did a great job as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Jessica Henwick is Peg. She's almost the one character here, and I'm including Benoit in this, that isn't sort of arrogant or cocky. But you get the different levels of that arrogance throughout the different characters, and from fully deserved and earned, like Benoit for being, like you said, the best detective in the world, right down through these characters in their descending order of earning this arrogance that they have in terms of what they actually bring to the world and whether they are as smart as they like to think they are, or as beautiful or as talented. it's such, we'll hearkening back to what we said earlier, such an interesting look at celebrity and fame and what that can do to a person. It's a really interesting character study. And so, Jessica Henwick playing that one straight normal person, just being like, these people are absolutely insane.
I mean, it was great. I love a lot of the pairings you get among the cast are so great. You can feel a lot of the chemistry and banter back and forth feels very natural because, again, they fleshed out these characters so much that it makes sense as to why you see who pairs up with who throughout the movie and stuff like that. And again, the banter back and forth is incredible. I love, again, Leslie Odom Jr. and Catherine Hahn have worked together before on Central Park on the animated format. But again, seeing them in this live action thing, you get a lot of that same chemistry. Again, in this one being the very close knit group of friends. But again, they really drive it home and did a great job of portraying these characters and their relationships. Like across the board, it was great.
And speaking of characters and their relationships, and also I think these characters putting up a front, I think Bautista, he's this macho anti-feminist, but he's also so fake at the same time, because there's a moment where we get to meet his mom, and she's played by Jackie Hoffman, who you might know from Only Murders in the Building, and probably like one of my favorite characters in this entire movie, even though she has such a small part in it. Like, she was absolutely hilarious. And I just love how, again, it speaks to this idea of, who are these people in front of the cameras, in front of their audiences, their Twitch streams, if you will, and who are they in real life? And I love that we get to break that down and see that throughout the movie. And I just love all the celebrity call-outs in the movie. I don't want to ruin any of them, so I might just hold back from sort of mentioning a few of them.
But I do want to get my hands on that hot sauce.
Okay, yes.
I won't say whose it is, but I want to get my hands on that hot sauce.
Yeah, and maybe a bit of kombucha. I think we could get some kombucha on the podcast if a certain someone is willing to give up being the Joker and maybe get us some. But I will say, I think it's just so much fun because it speaks to these characters, again, trying to constantly one-up each other socially. All of them. Or at least most of them. Maybe not Peg and Andy, but like most of these characters are just constantly trying to just be like, oh yeah, well, that was great when we were at this person's party, and they're just constantly name-dropping. And it's just, again, it's Hollywood making fun of Hollywood. And I love it. I love anytime we get that self-referential humor at these really horrible rich people's expense.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not even just mentions of celebrities. You actually do get a bunch of celebrity cameos of them playing themselves as well, which was really great. I will say one thing that maybe left me wanting a little bit more was the cameos that you get of actors that aren't necessarily playing themselves but different characters, but for such a short time. Mm-hmm. Ethan Hawke, shows up at one point, and you're
gone.
like, oh, who is this? This is interesting. And you don't really get much more. Hugh Grant shows up, and you're like, oh, okay. This is another very interesting character. And you don't get much. It's very much like the character of Batista's mom, played by Jackie Hoffman, who she's so good that you almost want more. I don't want to say that, again, this isn't a negative on the film, but it just goes to show how quickly these characters were able to make an influence and how well Rian Johnson wrote this movie for these people, that he really did leave you wanting more. And I'm not sure we'll ever get the satisfaction, if you will, of seeing these characters anymore. But speaking of maybe not something that didn't work, but anyways, was there anything about the movie that didn't quite resonate for you as we move along here?
I think the only thing I can think of, it's hard for me to call it a negative because it ended up working out at the end, but I think the first sort of section of the movie, as I said, kind of based off of what I thought of the first movie, I think the first movie it flows a little bit nicer in terms of throughout the narrative and sort of giving you the little Easter eggs. I think this one does take a little bit longer to set up, and I could see that turning away some folks in terms of their sort of overall experience with it. I think the setup, it does take a really long time. And again, I just think that has to do with how much we have to sort of explain, not through expository dialogue, but just explain and by showing sort of how all these characters are coming together before we get to the sort of pop of the movie.
Right, yeah, they do need to really spend a bit more time setting up how these characters know each other and why they're here and everything like that. And I do agree that it is it feels, when you're watching it at first, maybe a bit clunkier at the beginning.
Yeah.
But it does sort of, it's justified with the story being told and the mysteries that, as an audience, we things we can't see as they're happening in real time. And so we sort of get a lot of blanks filled in as the reveals are sort of happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like you said, Nate, it does work by the end of the movie. But yeah, it isn't as smooth an introduction into the movie as the first one. Again, it pays off, but yeah, that first chunk, but at least it's entertaining. There's big performances happening. So there's so much working for the film that those little bumps aren't as, they're not, too bad. You can definitely weather that storm, and it's worth getting to why they had to tell the story the way they did.
I mean, I can't really think of any faults off the top of my head because I enjoy the movie so much, and I can't wait for a rewatch to, like you said, pick up on all these little details, because it was so many, much like the first movie, everything is there and shown or said or referenced for a reason, and I love the way that the writing really stands out. So I have a hard time finding fault with it because I enjoy like that payoff so much.
Well, I think this will, spoilers for like what our scores will probably be, but I feel like the fact that we don't have too much negative to say is probably an indication that we're going to have a pretty high score. I do just want to shout out just another couple of things that I absolutely adored about this movie. I think Steve Yedlin, the cinematographer, deserves a lot of flowers for this movie. I think my eyes are darting around the screen constantly to try and catch to see what's going on, what's happening with these characters. But even the way that the movie's shot, I think there's moments where he puts the camera lower in front of the sort of the character who's dominant in that moment. But then you'll notice that as the characters start to sort of trip over the things they're saying or start to lose their footing in terms of like where they stand socially within this group, the camera starts to go a bit higher, and we do get to see them diminish a little bit more. And it's so cool. And there's a sequence with lighting that involves, all I'll say is it involves a lighthouse. And it's so captivating, it's so fun, but it's also so unnerving at the same time. And I think that's such a wonderful blend that speaks to what these movies are, is it's that feeling of like a little bit of dread, but also a little bit of kooky fun. And it reminds me of what is Madison with one Y, two N's. It's like, first it was scary, then it was fun, then it was spooky, but in a fun way or whatever. That's kind of how I feel about the cinematography of the movie. And then I also just want to shout out Nathan Johnson, brother of Rian Johnson, who brings the heat yet again with this score. I don't think it's just as brilliantly done as the original. I think it definitely, if where this movie doesn't sort of do a lot of callbacks to the original, I think the score definitely does, and we get that harpsichord sort of style theme that we know from the original score. But the way that he brings it into the sort of larger than life strings with sort of when we're getting to the island and when we get to sort of you can feel the score getting bigger, but then we get those quiet moments and the spider crawling string effect with the sharp violin. It just, again, it's that unsettling but also fun musical sound that just feels like a mysterious adventure. And I really, really enjoyed the score this time around as well. So again, I think the score isn't as good as the original for me, but it definitely lived up to my expectations of what to expect from Nathan Johnson. So I just want to shout out those last two bits there, just because there were a couple more things that I noticed.
No, I like it, and it really does highlight that we definitely have far more pros than cons for this movie,
Yeah.
which does have me sort of looking at the process of getting the film made. Mm-hmm. As much as we enjoyed it, the process was quite interesting in that, it was basically a major streaming platform bidding war to get the rights. And we're talking about just the rights to make this film and an upcoming sequel. Netflix ended up winning the rights to make this movie over Apple and Amazon with a price tag of $469 million. And again, that's just for the rights. It still cost another $40 million to make this movie. So as much as we enjoyed it, does that $470 million price tag seem worth it to you?
I mean, it's pretty crazy to think of, because I mean, I understand that price tag coming with something like Marvel or Star Wars, where there's infinite storytelling possibilities. But with the Knives Out, it's really centered around the character of Benoit Blanc. So to think that they're banking so much on the success of this franchise is very odd, because it isn't as mainstream or merchandisable as a Star Wars or Marvel. So that is the where I'm wondering, like, where did the justification for that price tag come from? Because so far I am enjoying it, I'm loving the movies and what's coming from it, but I'm not quite seeing what made them jump so quickly at dropping that much coin. It's kind of confusing from my angle.
Well, it's one of those movies that you sort of feel like how are they banking on the return on investment? I know the cast is a big, Hollywood-sized cast, but at the same time, like, this is going to be in theaters for a pretty short period of time, and then it's going to be on Netflix. And, I think it's we talked at the top of this review about COVID times and how the movie talks about that. We're starting to see things, unfortunately, kick back up now that we're getting into the colder months. We're starting to see a lot more sort of, that we're putting masks back on. We're moving back to the pods or socially distancing or that sort of thing. And so it's going to be interesting, because how many people are just going to go, oh, I did enjoy the first one, but I think I'll just wait till it's on my Netflix account to watch the sequel. And then what does that return on investment look like for Netflix?
That's where I'm most confused, because sure, the first one was a surprise breakout hit, especially for a new or unique property, in that it brought in $320 million at the global box office. But this has a 600 theater limited release here in North America, so they can't possibly be expecting those numbers here. So yeah, it is really a question of how are they going to recoup this. And again, it's not my money, so spend as you will. If it means making movies like this, Netflix, I'm okay with it. But I just wonder how you justify this to your own bank accounts, to your shareholders, everything like that. It just seems quite odd. But I guess we'll just have to see if they know what they must know something we don't, and it'll be interesting to see how that all unfolds. But in the meantime, I do believe that it's time for our dinner reservation. So let's wrap this up and give our opinion. I tried to fit in an onion in there.
That's fair. That's fair.
Let's fit it in. Let's get our opinion on the film. And along with our final thoughts here, we're going to be ranking the film on a scale of 1 to 5 Italian silk neck scarves, which Benoit proudly wears throughout the movie to just perfection.
So overall, this was a huge win for me. Hopefully, as you were discussing, a huge win for Netflix. I think Netflix, we've gotten a lot of 3s, a lot of 3.5s, and in some cases, even less than that this year from Netflix. So I think Rian Johnson knocked it out of the park. I think the murder mystery genre has been modernized because of what Rian Johnson has done with both the first movie and this movie. And I hope that's not that sounds like a really big statement, but it's not. Like, honestly, watch these movies. You're just going to have so much fun with them, and they're going to make you want to watch, a lot of the other sort of whodunit mysteries of yesteryear, or even the more recent stuff like After Party on Apple TV Plus. I think it takes a lot of from the first Knives Out movie. And so I don't think that this one for me worked as well in the sense that I did enjoy the family dynamic a little bit more of the original story. Here it's a little bit more playful than the original, and it's definitely more bombastic and bigger in ways that I think work towards the story, and as I said, that aren't just bigger because it's a sequel. I was just so thoroughly entertained by this movie. I can't wait to watch it again, having already seen it, to catch all the things that I missed, that Darcy said he caught, and I'm like, no way, Darcy, you're wrong. But maybe he's right. He's probably right. But I think the movie is, the best part about it is it's honest, and it doesn't artificially hide anything from the audience. So you can go back, you can watch it again, and I think that's perfect for this type of movie. In more ways than one, this movie was a glass onion. It's got layers, but it's also see-through the entire time. And I think that's just so smart and so well done. So yeah, I'm going to be giving this one a 4.5 out of 5 Italian silk neck scarves. I really love this. I hope Ryan, Nathan, and Daniel can keep it up for the third one, and I hope people watch this movie in theaters. Go watch it in theaters with the biggest group of your friends who enjoy this stuff, because I want Benoit Blanc to travel the world in the next movie, and that's not going to happen if the budget goes down.
Awesome. Darce, what'd you think?
Well, again, it's pretty obvious where my thoughts are stand on this movie, because I couldn't really find anything at fault with it. I didn't find it that as clunky at points as maybe you two did, because again, that payoff to me was so rewarding and again justified everything they set up going into it. So I loved it. Again, it's right up there with the first one for me in a great whodunit. Again, you said it great, Nate, in that it modernizes it in a way that hasn't really been done before, and they really have fun with it and know what they're doing when unraveling this mystery before us. So this is a strong 5 out of 5 Italian neck scarves from this guy, Italian silk neck scarves from this guy, because I love.
Yeah, you got to make sure they're silk. They got to be the finest, only the finest for the characters in this film. I'm right there with you guys. This definitely is the best Netflix movie that we've possibly ever been given to date, and certainly this year after a few very, let's call them, mediocre efforts. This is right up there with the first movie for me. I'm not sure if I enjoyed it more, but I think I enjoyed it because of how different it is from the first one, without feeling very much organically like a sequel, an extension, a carrying on of the character from the first one, which I think is probably really hard to do when you're bringing back one of 10 characters and replacing everybody else around the central character, and yet it still feels like it belongs to the same family of films. I think that was just so expertly done by Rian Johnson here. And like you said, Nate, get to the theaters and see this so that we can have not just a third, but as many adventures as he can come up with for this character, because I just think there's so much more to offer. And, if this film is any indication about how he can take it from a simple Clue-style whodunit in a mansion, and it's a murder that needs to be solved, and there's so many more mysteries that need to be unraveled in this film, which as a sequel, that's where they went bigger. That's where they went grander. I think it was so well done, and I'm excited to see what they can do moving forward with this character. And so, this is going to be a 4 out of 5 Italian silk neck scarves for me. I can't wait to watch it again when it comes to Netflix. So while Sarah will be watching it for the first time, I'll be going, oh, yep, there was that. Oh, that did happen. Oh, I can't wait to do that. And it's not often where I'm instantly leaving a theater going, I can't wait to watch that again so I can see everything I missed. So kudos to the film for that.
I'm sure Sarah's also going to get distracted by those big juicy thighs, not yours, but Batista's.
Well, no, I have some big juicy thighs.
I just also really want to quickly say, I know that I said that I want Benoit Blanc to travel the world. I actually want him to go to space. I think every sequel that Rian Johnson has done in space has been phenomenal. One of my probably favorites in terms of like a trilogy. So definitely setting it in space would be really great.
Oh, so you had to fit that Star Wars reference in somehow, and that's how you did it. Although I do think it's funny. Now you've got me thinking it could be very much an Among Us style, that space level. You could do that,
That's it.
So there we go. That's how they're going to make the Among Us movie. It's going to be Knives Out in
an Among
space.
Us story. Yeah, perfect.
That's awesome. Well, there you have it. Our spoiler-free review for Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. The movie solves your yearning for some more Benoit Blanc in select theaters on November 23rd before making its case to be the movie of the holidays when it debuts on Netflix on December 23rd. Thanks again to Netflix Canada for giving us an early look. A huge thanks to you for tuning in wherever you listen to podcasts. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and leave us 5 stars, or we might just have to give Benoit another murder mystery to solve. We'd love to know, are you looking forward to seeing Knives Out turn into an anthology series where Daniel Craig's Southern gentleman detective continues to solve increasingly intricate investigations? You can let us know at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com, or if that's a bit too Sherlock Holmes for you and you're a 21st century detective, you can also hit us up on Twitter at GeekcentricYT and on Instagram at WeAreGeekcentric. As always, we have plenty of awesome content to check out. We have our spoiler-free and filled reviews for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. We also have interviews with some of the stars of that film. Speaking of interviews, we have a ton of interviews with the casts and crews of some of our favorite movies and TV shows from the year, including our most recent with members of the Zootopia team. Plus, keep your eyes and ears open for a series of exciting interviews coming your way soon. You can check those out wherever you listen to podcasts or watch the magic happen on our YouTube channel over at youtube.com/geekcentric. There's just a ton of awesome stuff to check out on both the podcast and the YouTube channels. So head over, give them a like, hit those bells, subscribe, do all the things, show us some love, and yeah, just do it all. And until next time, as we say,
Love ya.
Laters.
you get home safe, you hear? I gotta stop doing the accent.
It's not great.